Welcome to another program. It is Sunday, of course, the great debate brought to you by Late Night, of course, part of our Sunday programming. Hope you had a good Sunday so far, and let's have a good discussion. Of course, today I invited several parties to come and talk about education, and only one showed up. One. In the second part of the great debate, we're going to talk a little bit more about the lack of interest of these political parties during this crucial time in the election season. But for now, I'll be nice and we'll interview the one that actually respected the time. And we do appreciate the Ursm for sending a representative to the program for your information. And that is, of course, Miss Alicia Brooks. Good day.
Hi, good evening. How are you, Andrew?
Good evening, I'm good. Thank you for coming. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you for inviting me and having us here.
Now, the topic for this week was education, improvements in education, and you see how the stars align this works because you you know more about education, specifically special needs. But we're gonna just take education first before we go to the special needs aspect. What's the party's position when it comes to education and educating St. Martin?
Well, our logo is URSM, so you are St. Martin, right? And we definitely believe anything pertaining to St. Martin in particular. And it talks about, we go from education to communities to, care, digital world, everything, our positions stand on our community first and everything else after. So definitely our position in education is one that is of precedence for us.
Improvements, where do we begin?
It's a lot. It's a big thing.
Yeah, I know.
We have a lot to talk
broad.
about.
I know it's pretty broad. But they always say, you start off by, early stimulation.
Yeah.
That's where you should focus on. But do we have a curriculum?
No, well, let me just step back then. And if you look at it as early childhood education, so we talk about the daycares first, because, the first step to it is daycare. Parents go back to work 6 weeks, the mother to be exact, right? By 6 weeks, they're back at work. So what happens if you don't have a family member, anybody, it goes to daycare. So they go through the infant stage, and then they go through toddler, and then they go to early stimulation, right? Okay. But it's important that daycares also need to have a curriculum, because if Andrew's daycare is doing one thing and Alicia daycare is doing the next thing, then when it's time for early stimulation, the children all over, some know ABC, some know numbers, some don't know colors. Yeah. So, that's where we need to start first, and then we go to early stimulations, because they follow the FBE school system, so they go into the elementary school system. So they already have something set that they can follow. So that is a good thing. And then, of course, we go up the scale to high school and then tertiary education and then USM, So improvements is on a broad scale when we look at education altogether, because then we have to take these steps initially and look at how can we fix it and make it one thing that is continuous, a ladder. They graduate from each level and then complete it properly.
But it's easier said than done, because you have these daycares, for example, that they don't necessarily fall under the government scope.
Correct.
So now they get to make their own policies and their own rules based on whatever they wake up on. So then, how do you streamline, let's say, a daycare center to follow a particular curriculum?
Okay, so I know that a guarantee that the daycares are SEC that have been working years with the Ministry of Youth to get that, recognized and subsidy for the daycares, and then they will fall under one school. In the meantime, however, SECDA organization is working hard to have all daycares on the same level, same structure, try to maintain the same thing. Of course, pricing, and if we talk about anything in St. Martin, there's no price control on anything, right? So pricing can vary, and it's also a good thing because you have some parents that cannot afford a high price for daycare fee. And, so it goes between that average where parents can afford it and out of the range where you say, I'll take a better standing daycare because financially I can afford it, right? But I know SECDA have been working to create that scale where everybody is across the board the same thing on that level.
But how long? I mean, it's been forever.
Well, let's talk about first our government.
Okay. Yeah.
So
it comes down to the government.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
They take a very long time to have everything, approved and accepted, so it starts from there. But like I say, I know they have been working on it. They have their documents together and they have everything. But how long is it going to take to get approved? That's a question on the government now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's bring it back. Now, when it comes to having something for youngsters in St. Martin, and often on social media, people always complain that we have more things for adults than for children. Parks, playgrounds, I mean, the works. Do we need a complete overhaul when it comes to education on St. Martin?
Being honest, yes.
Yeah?
Yes, we do. And like you see, it has a lot of things for adults and no children.
Yeah.
We definitely need an overhaul. And, let's be honest. Yes, government can't supply everything. They definitely can, and that's why we have NGOs which step in and do the great work that they are doing. But at some point in time, government has to take their accountability to say, hey, we can assist here with these organizations in bringing forth these things for our youth, our teenagers. If you look around now, our teenagers, they definitely have nowhere to go. So they use the means of going to adult entertainment, when I mean like little clubs and whatever, to have their fun. Now, if you had something for the teenagers that are age appropriate, it can be a club, it could be for teenagers though.
Or just hang out outside the movies.
Correct. And then that creates fights and bring other problems, but there's definitely nothing for them to do. And so it's a major step in a direction that we need to go. And I think when we think about education, we just think about books and paper and chalkboard.
But it's more than that.
It's
obviously.
more than
Yes,
that. It's social, it's emotional, it's psychological, it's everything together for children from birth until teenage years, and it continues. But because our focus is on education, we talk between those ages.
Have we done too much talking over the years? I mean, we've talked, and then a new minister comes in. We talk again, and then we create committees. Then committees then make reports. Then reports goes to the department, goes to the minister, and then a change happens again. Is that the cycle we've been going, especially since 10-10-10?
The thing is, we see it happening, right?
Yeah.
And we always ask behind the scenes. And I say it, sometimes we're not in it to know what is happening. But I think when change comes, we just have to review, revamp, and move. Every minister comes shouldn't have a different idea. Yeah, we should
continuation.
We should be working for the vision of education. That's what we're working for. And if I am minister, you are minister, Andrew, because we have a plan, that's what we're working towards. So it shouldn't change, it should continue. Maybe as a minister, I want to tweak something because, what your vision was and what mine is a little bit different, but we should have the same alignment for country St. Martin, not for self. So we've been seeing it happen over and over and over, and the goal is for URSM to, have those things worked on, and you cannot promise change in a fast time.
Yeah, I was just about to say, because you can't do it tomorrow.
No, you can't promise change in a fast time, but what you can do is show your population that you are working. Keep them informed on what is happening, and let them know what are the updates. And, you can have different reviews or assessments happening, but if your population is not involved, then it's still empty. Because we did it, example, just saying as a government, we did it from internally. We hired Andrew to carry out this new project, but we didn't involve the community of Melleridge and Dutch Quarter, Soccer Garden, to hear how those people feel. Then we didn't work for the community. We worked for what we thought is going to work for the community, and that's what we've seen happening. So that's one of the major problems also.
special needs in education. I know that is a passion of yours. Tell us, with the special need policy that is being worked on, that will be ready soon, later, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe next month, maybe next year. The minister talked about it. But of course, you've heard it from the minister himself. And you had some issues with the way that he is handling special needs. So National Alliance will handle National Alliance when the time is right. But as far as handling special needs, how would Ursm handle that?
Yeah. So, you know, firsthand, like you said, Excellence Learning Academy closed, and I was the past director of Excellence Learning Academy. And for the past 5 years, I have filled that gap for the community, and we know government haven't done it. Yeah, there's Prince William Alexander, but there's also different levels of special needs. And if we look at our population of students, let's go with, we have a maximum of 6,000, 7,000 students. We can't have one special needs school that can house only 80 children that can only join school from the age of 7 or 8. What happens to compulsory education from the age of 4, right?
Correct.
So definitely I filled that gap from 2017 until present. And, you know, it really hurt. It was sad to see that I had to close the doors of the school forcefully because of financial issues, right? So I'm hoping that this is a sign for government that, you know, we need to focus more on education in special needs, education in general, but we need to create policies that work. And yes, your question was about the policies that is there, they're working on it. But does it work for all special needs children? Does it work particularly for children with learning disabilities, or does it work for everybody on the list of 23 disabilities? Yeah? So what are we really working towards? And I read through the policy, and, you know, I want to tell the people that are working on it, thank you for working on it. But again, if we didn't involve parents and schools firsthand on a bigger scale to understand what happens at home and in school, then the policy still doesn't work.
Yeah, because you work with the kids,
Yeah.
and you're the one who see the situations on a daily basis, and so it's involve the stakeholders, obviously, but you know, financing is always something, and subsidy, but then, you know, you have to jump through hoops literally to get that. So you were able to do that for 5 years, but now, of course, the sad part is that the children is the ones who end up suffering from, you know, the lack of. Yeah.
Correct. So for URSM, you know, our vision with the education committee is to ensure that across the board, everybody is educated. And again, change doesn't come one time, but once you have a proper planning and knowledge of where you want to go and what you want to achieve, then it's something that can happen, right? So for us, it's, like I said, firsthand, I have the experience of what happened with special needs. I also teach other areas of education, and it's now seeing how, once URSM is in, how can we adjust the situation to ensure that all children across the board are educated? Even if it's finding a space to put them where they can get the attention, you know, and the education that they need, that is the primary goal, to assist in that direction.
But finding the space, that's why I'm saying the finances, you know, because it's nice to hear these plans, but, you know, where are we going to get the financing from? Do we shuffle around? Where do we get it? Because clearly we have a financing problem in this country.
Well, you see, and that's another thing. We do, but, you know, every time I look around, I say there are means for us to have that money generated in our education system. Okay, so we want to give an investor the opportunity to come sit Martin and build. Yeah, no problem. We can ask that investor, because they're coming in with capital money already, right? So we can ask them, hey, listen, if you would like to sponsor one school, you can give us, let's just say $2,000 that we can donate towards that school for whatever it needs. It mightn't take the school a long way, but just a start. Because once that person coming in, that investor, that business, that they see that the school is doing stuff and it's profitable and it's successful and the students are learning, living, and being happy, they're gonna say, hey, you know what? We think our investment here is good. We're gonna continue. And we can do that with every investor, because we have, let's say, I wanna say maybe 30 schools, high schools included. If we do that with all of them that is coming in, by then every school will have something. Because we talk about generating tourism income and different stuff like that. That is something that we can do in our schools. It lessens the burden on government. Because remember, again, not everything we can depend on government for, but they are held accountable to the highest.
They're responsible.
They are. So financing is a problem, then let's sit with the finance minister and talk about every time we approve a project to start, how can they help our country? Because they're going to help. Because once you put that, it's not, we asking them for $40,000, $50,000. You know, we tell them, listen, we need a proper amount to assist a school.
Interesting.
And it works.
What about corporate responsibility, though? Because, I mean, they have many companies in St. Martin also. And, of course, they do what they can, some, but then you have a lot that don't do anything.
Correct. And that is another thing that you can research. Who donates continuously? Because you know those companies that continuously donate.
Yeah.
Even if it's a small little thing as needing a vehicle or backpacks or whatever, there's companies that are willing to give that. And then there's those when you come back, it's always we don't have money, our budget is closed.
Yeah.
But again, I think people think about the big things, you know. Imagine a school is having sports day and they come and ask you just to donate oranges and you can't donate oranges for sports day, then we have a problem, you know. So it's small things that counts, but I think we have to start shifting the mindset of our community on a whole for them to understand as a business, if you create healthy students, you're going to have healthy employees. It doesn't just end at school when you graduate, it continues because now you want these graduates to work for you. But how can they work for you if mentally they're not good, academically they're not strong, then it doesn't work,
and you didn't start early, you started late for them to generate an interest or like that. All right, Miss Alicia Brooks from the URSM party. She's the special guest on the Great Debate tonight. Of course, we're talking about improvements in education and education on a whole. But, you know, let's not forget that this is a legislative election, so it's all about legislation. Have you been able to look at some of the laws that we have? Is it outdated when it comes to our education laws? Should it be revamped? Should it be amended? Should we throw them in the trash can and start back over? Just say it figuratively, because you know, it's one thing to also just say that you would like to see this happen, but everything comes down to legislation and policy.
Correct. So we know it takes, with our country, it takes a time to have that
the red
passed.
tape.
Yeah, the things that you have to go through and stuff, and that is okay. But I wouldn't say restart brand new. It doesn't make sense, because then what we are doing is reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
What I'm gonna say is take what we have and amend it. You know, time is moving, so things that we maybe had with blackboard and chalkboard and whiteboard is not needed. Now we want a digital era. The law is already there. Can we amend it? And if it's a possibility for amendment, then let's do that. I don't believe in recreating what's already there, but I believe in readjusting it to the time that we're in now. And that is important for us to do. So I think once we start to pay attention to that and start readjusting, and of course, some things may be missing because we know our laws are written a long time ago. Some are being updated and put in, but what needs to change, then we need to push that effort to have them changed as soon as possible. And I think education is one of those things that we shouldn't wait long on. Like this special needs policy, I think it's drawn out. It's too long in waiting. I think it should have been already approved and ready to go. You know, certain things we have to push priority for, and I think education is one of those.
And only when things go to left is when it comes out that, you know, it's being worked on. All right. Before we go, you could, of course, give your final thoughts to our listeners and viewers.
You know, I just want to encourage everybody to look at what's happening in the country and where we are headed and make the right decisions. You know, we're not asking for a vote because of a guilty conscience, but a vote of what is happening and a conscious decision on should I or should I not, for the betterment of myself and my children and country St. Martin. And yeah, that's it for me, Andrew.
Thank you so much for joining us. Let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we continue the great debate.
Red Ice Crew, alongside KRYS. We so overload up here.
When we touch the road, we going overload. Don't bother hold me back. Carnival back on track. We going all out, going all out, going all out. When we touch the road, we going overload. Don't bother hold me back. Carnival back on track. We going all out, going all out, going all out.
Full of vibes, sexy girl them can wine. Look at this on a mass, everybody put your hands high. Girl go down, go down, girl go down, go down, girl go down, go down and stop. Girl back it up, me when you back it up, and me back it up and now drop. Boy, me girl who tell me sexy, me feel qu'à danser. Come out with a risky baby, pas j'ai arrêté, pas j'ai arrêté.
When we touch the road, we going overload. Don't bother hold me back. Carnival back on track. We going all out, going all out, going all out. When we touch the road, we going overload. Don't bother hold me back. Carnival back on track. We going all out, going all out, going all.
Welcome back to the program, The Great Debate, right here on the Late Night Show. Of course, it's our Sunday discussion continues, and I'd like to thank URSM for sending a representative for today's program. Of course, next week we will continue, but in the meantime, the second half of the program is where we get a contributor, political contributor, to come on and talk about, what's happened over the week, and also you got to listen to some of the ideas and wishes of the URSM. So going to discuss that. And who's better to be my first contributor than, the myth himself. And that is, of course, Mr. Julio Romney. Good day, sir. It's a good introduction.
Good introduction.
Of course, happy Sunday to you, sir.
And thank you for having me.
Yes, it's an honor to have you here. Of course, you was able to hear some of the ideas from the URSM. But before you go and answer that, allow me to say that it's disappointing that I've giving the opportunity to the political parties to send representatives to this program, because it's specifically to inform, the voters, the population of some of the plans and some of the difference of approaches when it comes to the policies and how they would handle the day-to-day operations for St. Martin, legislatively, and also, as ministers, if they do get appointed. The National Alliance was set to send someone into the program today, and that person did not show up. And then you had the No Party, MP Bonkamper was supposed to be here, but he's off island. Then we had the United People's Party. They was also set to send someone, and they also had an emergency. The USP was sent information. The board received it. They said they received it, but up to now they haven't sent a representative. Of course, every week I will continue to send invitations to these political parties because they believe that they're ready to, run this country. But it's important that the viewers know that I give every party the opportunity to send a representative to discuss a different topic every week. And if they show up, they show up, but if they do not show up, I will tell you that they did not show up. The only party that showed up today was the URSM party, and they're not even in government. With that said, Mr. Romney.
Yes, like I said, thank you for having me. And I think that the party should respond to this. Education is an important aspect of this. Okay? And if one goes back again and look at self-governing, which we are a self-governing constituent state within the kingdom.
Yeah.
And it's clearly outlined as part of our responsibility in the whole concept of self-governing in the charter. There are 3 areas. You're responsible, solely responsible, I might add, for finance, economic development, culture, and education.
Education.
So it's
Voila.
important, and we must to move forward. In fact, in moving forward, education is essential.
Yeah.
We must make sure that we have an educated society.
And I know that
to
you've been a
neglect-
proponent of always saying that education is where it begins.
Where it begins.
Implementation of policies in the schools.
Yeah.
Because that's where you set that's how you set the minds of the youngsters on, where you want to take the country. You've heard some of the positions, but I mean, coming back to how the many governments dealt with education, culture, youth, and sport, it's they put it in one basket, and oftentimes it looks like the ministers that are appointed, their hands are either tied or they have too many ideas. Mr. Romney, what do you think?
Well, I would hope that their hands are not tied. I think, and they're just not focused, okay, to my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, they have quite a bit of portfolios, but then they should have the necessary staff that would assist them in these areas. And for over the years, I've seen that, again, to my mind, that education within that ministry has been lagging.
Yeah.
They're not giving enough attention to education, and education is important. There's no way that you can have a advancing constituent
Society.
state, so
Yeah.
to speak,
Yeah.
unless you have it well-educated,
Yeah.
well-educated people. And starting within your schools, starting with civics, starting with persons understanding our governmental structure. Okay. And we can see over the years that has been lacking.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way to show it. I mean, it's just not, they're not putting enough attention into that. Okay.
But
Our
where do
schools are
we
falling.
begin? Where do we begin?
We begin by putting that policy together. We begin by formulating a policy with an overall objective to get us to a higher level.
So you would say maybe a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan,
Correct.
something for the long term,
yeah.
not short term.
Short term.
And then we work
and
towards
having that
that.
curriculum to facilitate that advancement of the long term. Okay? And the T, and I keep on saying that, starting first, what? Civics. You must understand the structure that you're in. And to be frank, that is not being taught in those schools.
Yeah. Because we see the mess, for example, that is happening with the unions, and of course, its members, teachers, not going to school for about 3 days, and yeah, they didn't call it a strike, but the children were affected because 3 days there was no school. Now, we can avoid that by simple communication. That is one aspect that the union is saying. But then at the same time, how do we, keep our children hostage? Because for 3 days, the schools were open, but there were no teachers.
No teachers.
Yeah. What do you think on as far as the treatment of the teachers in education?
And what treatment of teachers is very important too, because if you don't have teachers that are satisfied, so to speak, if you want to use that term, if you don't have teachers that feel comfortable and given the resources necessary to teach, then of course actual teaching is going to be affected.
Yeah.
And so therefore you have to make sure that your teachers are well taken care of, we will use that term again, and more important, that your teachers are knowledgeable.
Yeah, that's important. Earlier this week, a lot's happened. Many parliament meetings, Mr. Romney. It's almost as if it's an election year. You know, and of course, the Mullet Bay situation was one that you know, was discussed earlier this week. You had also the committee dealing with you know, bringing your kid to the movies, the rating system, and so on. Electoral reform was also a very interesting one because the PFP came with a suggestion whereby they said that you know, let's remove the curtains. This will prevent vote buying. Of course, Ambikisha Heliger says let's put the ballot with a barcode so that nobody can switch and so on. Your thoughts on all these changes or proposed changes to this electoral reform? Yeah.
Well, I had an opportunity to sit in on the meeting.
Okay.
And I found it was rather interesting meeting. And it raised a number of questions in my mind. And when we're looking at electoral reform, you must, you know, what's the objective here? Okay, the objective would be to have what? Free and fair elections.
Elections, yeah.
With the removing of the curtains, I think that could contribute to some aspect to free and fair elections, because then a person would not be able to do little shenanigan behind the
Yeah.
curtain. So therefore,
But you know, I've never really, you know, respected the fact that people just say things loosely without any facts, because most of the time, like, okay, free and fair elections. So are we saying that the elections we had before wasn't free and fair? It's the same thing with the phenomenon of vote buying. It's just, you know, a hot topic that is discussed in the community, but we don't have no actual data that says, okay, well, okay, this is what actually we can look at and say that vote buying in St. Martin is an issue. It's just some of those things that we've talked about in society, but it's been talked about so much that people just take it as a fact. But there's actually no statistics that we can compare it to. And I'm more of a practical guy when it comes to show me the numbers.
Showing the numbers,
Yeah, that's my take on, you know, the suggestions. So to say free and fair, I thought we were doing free and fair all these years. So that means was it only vote buying that contributed to the governments that we have so far?
well, you know, and that's a good point. As a matter of fact, one of the members of parliament that was in attendance asked that, where's the empirical data that says that is significant, that makes the vote not free and fair.
Yeah.
Of course, they don't have that empirical evidence, or has not been presented, so to speak. And I think that they should take a step backward and, you know, and get that data.
Yeah.
And I suppose once the person that presented the whole concept of removing the curtain, they went on to I guess to motivate, if I could use that term again, their answer saying that members of parliament, and to paraphrase the member of parliament, have a right to declare themselves as an independent member of parliament. And that in itself should be a key part of what? Of electoral reform.
Yeah.
And we do have data showing that dismally affect whether or not we have free and fair elections.
Yeah. That's a good way of, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And I was taken back by that, and I had several minor discussions with it, and at some point, but I'm continuing, I'm going to think that we have to address that.
Yeah.
Clearly, the whole thing about a member of parliament having a right to declare themselves as independent is grossly inaccurate.
Yeah.
I would say to the people, somebody, go back to the Constitution. It talks about Parliament, the composition of Parliament, being what? By proportional representation.
Yeah.
It clearly states here that the membership in Parliament, again, now within the electoral ordinance, because the Constitution says by proportional representation, okay, with again reference to, as laid down in the national ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay? And what one has to understand is what? The concept of proportional representation.
Yeah.
Concept of proportional representation clearly states, okay, that Parliament would be made up or composed of members that are reflective of the vote.
Yeah.
Based on what? A political party.
Party system.
They often will say that the party is not mentioned in the law. That after elections the party is gone.
Yeah, it's
And
an individual.
I would challenge them.
Yeah.
Go to the electoral ordinance. Every other page, the concept of party list is mentioned 3, 4, 5 times. Okay, go back again, and again, if you go to the explanatory note of the Constitution, it again clearly, I mean, black and white, simply says what? That if a party wins 10% of votes, they should be represented what? By 10% in the legislative body. So it baffles me as to why one would want to think that. And every opportunity I get, I'm going to say this because that clearly affects Parliament.
Yeah,
Because
it does.
we had an election here where two parties came together and formed government.
Yes.
Okay? And during that time, if my memory served me right, we had about 5 or 6 parties ran.
Yeah.
Okay? So they were made up of 5 or 6 factions. Today, how many factions we have?
9.
Okay. You see, these persons, they were never elected by proportional representation. The proportion is not on the individual member of parliament.
Yeah.
The proportion is on the political party.
Yeah.
See,
But, you know, I'm having to get these changes, or at least some of the changes, before the term finishes, before the elections is called, because we've also heard, you know, the rumor of elections being a bit earlier than January 24th, 2024. So, is it that we're going to dissolve Parliament, or did the Prime Minister just decide with the Council of Ministers we're going to have it early and we will consider that a full term? I think that's trampling on the Constitution itself.
No, the Constitution clearly says that we have to have the elections by, guess what, January 24th. But within the parliamentary system, the Prime Minister can call election at any time. Okay? But it must be done by that period of time, you know, by that time. Insofar as making the necessary changes to ensure that we have free and fair elections, specific to the notion of you know, persons, you know, fair elections, so to speak.
Yeah.
Then, okay, that can be done, and it's all about what? Making some amendments and coming up with, again, you could go back to the you know, just giving clarification as to what can and cannot be done.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? And some time ago, which I'm going to do some follow-up on that, I asked those same questions
Yes.
to the council,
yeah.
the electoral council.
Yeah, you did.
And I did that back, what, in October, November
October last year,
I've
yeah.
never gotten a response.
Yeah.
Because their responsibility is to what? Ensure proportional representation. Okay? And at the end of each election, they who determines or give a process verbal, as they call it, as to who win and who didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
So if it's your job to do that, I would think your statutory order, your statutory responsibility does
to
not
make sure-
end
yeah.
at the end of the
And that it
goes
makes sure it's
away.
regulated
Yeah.
to also regulate because,
yeah.
again, bad precedents were set in the past.
In the past.
That we continue to
do
go
it.
by based on the president. That's it. We don't go based on
On the law.
On the law.
Yeah. And one
which
of
is
the
scary.
questions I asked him, and I said, I am open to be corrected.
Yeah.
Where in the Constitution or any statutory document does it say allow Parliament to unilaterally change the composition of Parliament? Where does it give Parliament the right to accept a person's declaring themselves, quote unquote, an independent member of Parliament? No one can tell me that.
Yeah. So then what do we base it on?
Yeah, based on what?
Yeah.
If things should be based on the law. If one say within their rules or what have you, no.
I think
The key here
it also came from the Netherlands Antilles, way of parliamentary procedure, what they did before. And I remember the first independent in St. Martin was Mr. Patrick Illich, from what I remember. And when it was done, it was like, okay, what does this mean? But then afterwards, when he was allowed to actually, make another government, it just took a continued president from there, and that has been happening. Whereby, the explanation the independents give now is, well, I was elected through a party, yes. However, if I don't align myself or don't see myself with the party's core values anymore, I feel that I can still represent the people without the party support. That's the excuse that they give, and they say that, yes, because the people voted for me, and that's why I'm here. But most of the time, when you look at it, it's the hand-me-down seat.
Yeah. And I would say clearly,
It's the people who refuse their seat in order for you to have the seat that you have. And usually it comes down to the second, the third, fourth degree, because a whole group would have to leave, and then it comes down the line on the party list itself.
And that's within the party. But if one talking a person elected you, the person did not elect you.
Yeah.
And again, I'll take persons go reference to the electoral ordinance from Article 95 of the electoral ordinance. The first order of business is to what? Determine which party got which seats, how many seats.
Yeah,
so
but
you're not elected by them.
Yes, but the party is the one that
won the seat,
that
not
won
the
the seat.
individual.
So even if I get 950 votes, Mr. Romney, can I say that I wasn't elected by the people?
Well, no, you cannot say that.
So you could say
Okay, I would because it's
an individual on the party.
Yeah, I understand that, but the assignment of seats in there is not based on how many votes an individual made. It's based on what? How many votes that the party wins.
That's how they
the next
divided.
step, and the next step would be then, if the party wins X amount, then the party selects X amount from its list and gives to the seat. See? So you are assigned based on the number of seats that the party win. There also can be that situation where a person, based on, because of the party associated with, that you find yourself in a position where you can be selected. But you could also be on a different party and have gotten more votes than that selected person.
Yeah.
So then that person in this party, but he or she did not get elected, right? Because that party did not win a seat.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
yes, yeah.
so that person can say, well, the more people voted for me, I should be on this seat as opposed to that seat.
Okay, that's a good point.
Because if I'm on a party, let's say I'm on up, which stands a good chance of getting a whole number of seats.
Yeah.
And then you find maybe 3-4 of the top guys say, look, I don't want to do that, I want to go to Parliament.
Yeah.
So I'm way down and I got 125 votes.
Yeah.
And I got selected. There might be a person on the Christian party.
That received 300 votes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And he's not there.
And he's not there, yeah. Correct.
He can say it, and the people elected him.
The people elected him. Okay.
Okay.
That's a good
If it was a one of one-party system, then we could, because then he will have that opportunity.
Yeah.
But it's not. We are a multi-party system.
Yeah, yeah.
See? And these are things that people, I don't think they fail to understand or they fail to recognize.
They just don't mention it, Mr.
No,
because it wouldn't be in their favor.
It's not to their,
Yeah.
to their advantage.
That is true. So ultimately, after the discussion, they are going to seek more advice. But do you see any changes taking place before the next elections?
I hope that they will be.
Okay.
I hope they will, because I said we cannot move forward without these making changes or making persons aware of this in order to, if you want to look at electoral form, so to speak. Okay? And the whole concept that we call coding, again, the ballot, that in itself and I guess we have to wait to see for that to be further developed.
Yeah, barcoding.
Because,
Yeah.
yeah.
Who's going to barcode it
Yeah.
and which
In
company and
essence,
so on. Yeah.
And a question we should take a look, what is barcoding going to do for free and fair elections? Is barcoding going to resolve the whole issue what they talked about, the Bulgarian train? No. But I will reserve some of that until I see that whole thing develop.
Yeah.
Because barcoding is just, giving a name. And important here now, the barcode should be associated with something else. So what? It'll be associated with the voter. Toward the whole concept of free and fair. Because you can link the barcode.
But I mean,
with
I
that
think
person.
digitizing also, meaning for digitization. So, for example, there'll be in this polling station, thus far at this time, this amount of persons voted based on the fact that you have the number immediately. But
okay, good. So what that does, what that issue that supposedly can solve is that, and when we talk about that digitization, I guess we're meaning scanning.
Yeah.
Okay? So what that does, or the benefit here, is that we can probably get our election results
Earlier.
at 12 midnight as opposed to 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Morning, yeah, correct. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That does not address the Bulgarian train. It does not address free and fair elections.
Yeah.
Free and fair elections meaning there's no dilly-daddling in between there. That we go back and ensure the concept of one man, one vote.
Understood.
But I guess we will hold and reserve until,
we got time. We got time.
until those persons
the new
give us
parties-
the clarification.
The new parties that's coming on board. I'm sure you've seen, the launching phenomenon that's happening now. Everybody's launching, and I said to myself, I hope that they still remember that there's an electoral ordinance that prevents us from doing all this prior to postulation. That's a different discussion, but everybody's launching. I mean, is this good for our democracy? Yeah, I know.
Interesting that you went there. And I would say, no, it's not. You see, we must understand again the whole thing about elections, parliamentary system. Okay? The party is essential to that system. And the party should be what? An association, I think, together. But when you have a political party that has 15, 20, so we go up to what, 21 members? Imagine all 21 has its own platform, has its own launching. Chaos. You understand? Wow, I feel, and you hear that guy will come and claim them. I have joined this political party because of what? They allow me to do what I want to do. Folks, you know what I mean? We just are, and I want to make clear here too is that person would say, well, Julio, you always talking negative, or you think that, no, I am not. and I want to again to understand is that I am not, and I don't advocate one or the other.
Yeah.
Okay? I consider myself as what? An educator. And I'm going to give you both sides of the story.
Yeah.
And then the people will make up their mind. They'll
Correct.
make up the decision.
Yeah.
We must look at both sides if we indeed want to come down on the right side. And if you have a political party that each individual has his own platform, has his own, it's total chaos. And believe it or not, that what facilitates what? Ship jumping. Because if I
wasn't
don't
allowed
get-
to execute my policy or my plans.
Therefore, we're not aligned. We don't agree anymore. So therefore, I must move on and become independent.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point.
So we are focused on that.
Yeah.
And what? As a result, we cannot govern.
Because it's about me.
Yeah, it's about me.
Yeah.
And that's going to be difficult because what? Our politics is based on, history. It's based on what? Personal politics.
Personal politics, yeah.
There's no quote-unquote ideology here.
Yeah.
Where you can say, good, I'm a conservative, I'm a liberal, or what have you. So
Yeah.
therefore, what joins us together, right, is the principles of conservatism, the
Yeah.
principles of a liberal. No, what joins here together, or what brings a person to a party, how many votes you can bring to the table.
Yeah. Personalities.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. Because after you look at the launchings of the different individuals, they give you the reason why they plan on postulating themselves, and this is prior to postulation itself. So then it makes it also it muddies the water as far as information wise for the voter who's trying to make up their mind, because then you don't know. Yes, okay, I like Julio, but I don't necessarily like his number 10 candidate, or his number 10 candidate is completely opposite of what Julio is presenting. Yeah. So it makes an area of confusion. Yeah, that's a good way. I didn't think about that. I didn't think on that.
It's chaos.
Yeah.
I'm saying, folks,
So parties should just focus on what they as a party stand for and what they plan to do as a party, no matter the individual, the party's policy.
Yeah. So you join the party, join the association, the party comes out with a platform, and everybody has to follow that.
Push the policy, yeah.
See, you could be areas within that platform that you'll have different candidates that'll focus on, much like the young lady you had earlier.
Yeah, from Ursm.
Her area is education.
Yeah.
So within that party, her
And-
focus can be on education.
Yeah, because she did mention she's part of the education committee.
Okay, yeah.
So
So she can focus on
Yeah.
education. So if you have within that party that you have persons in the different areas, one on education, probably one on finance, one on what have you, and these persons are well-rounded in these areas, you have a much stronger party.
Yeah.
You can best go into government, to govern,
yeah.
okay? In order to bring legislation to the forefront.
I like
Because
it.
everyone wants to do his or her thing, and when they get into parliament, they're there forever. Never come up with a piece of initiative legislation.
And that's why, when I call some of the MPs complainers, they tell me, yeah, but I'm not in government. I'm in opposition, or, I don't have the support. And I always say that I never believed in that construct, because you can bring a piece of legislation still, or a change amendment, and then put it to the floor. And if they decide to support it, they support it. If they don't, they don't. But at least you try it.
And what you find here is very interesting, is that even the persons within government are complaining.
Yeah.
Here again, our understanding of a parliamentary system.
Yeah.
The majority of persons or parties in parliament, they're directly related to the government.
Majority. Yeah.
So the parliament,
Majority would be the ones to question or be concerned about something that their government is doing. Yeah,
it's
I
their
never understood
government.
that. Yeah.
So therefore, there should be that caucusing between the legislative
An executive.
and the executive.
Correct.
Because the executive comes directly out of the legislative. So you're talking about you're not in government. Of course you are in government, because you, the executive body, was placed there by yourself.
Yeah.
But of course, here again, we go back to this personal thing. Because you have
personality,
15 ministers going all in different directions.
Yeah.
And the parliamentarians going in different directions.
Yeah.
So therefore, what again come back to the same old total chaos.
I'm sure that's going to change with this election year, whereby you'll see the slow separation of the parties, and where they're going to go back into, okay, give us a full mandate because we can't do it with other persons. Yeah.
And I'm afraid if they get a full mandate, the chaos is going to still be there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because they don't work as a unit. They do not work as a unit. Every politician, every parliamentarian see himself as, they'll say, I have a what? I can vote my conscience.
Yeah.
What is voting your conscience? And they're misusing or misinterpreting the statutory order, the article within the Constitution.
Yeah.
Because it's telling you your vote cannot be influenced by those who elected you.
Yeah.
Okay, and of course that means that
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
And if one again look at the explanatory notes, it clearly states there that we recognize that you are part of a party, so therefore there will be consultation within that party.
Yeah, but the consultation does not take place.
I
Yeah.
mean, imagine that.
Yeah.
I mean, one common sense will tell you, if we have, how many parliamentarians we have?
We have 15.
15.
Yeah.
All 15 vote their conscience.
Then we have 15 different. Yeah.
I guess probably that's the
Stalemate.
reason why we have 15 parliamentarians, and at most they do
yeah.
is come up with a motion,
Motion after motion.
motion after motion.
And,
as
you
we know, motion goes nowhere.
No.
Because despite that the member or the minister is part of or comes from that party with the majority,
Yeah.
he's not going to follow your motion.
No.
He's going to do or she's going to do what he or she wants to do.
Because they're going to say it's not possible at this time, but thank you, noted.
Yeah.
Okay, the great debate was a great program. Thank you so much, Mr. Romney. Of course, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
And yeah, you have a book that is out. I remember that you did a lecture last week.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we did a lecture last week on the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Okay.
As it administered by the Charter for the Kingdom of the Netherlands. So it outlines the complete the kingdom, and then it ties it in with the articles of the Charter, which established the kingdom.
Yeah.
And there again, we talked about the advantages, disadvantages, and a way forward within this statutory order of a constitution, of a kingdom of the Netherlands. And to that end, too, we spoke to the whole concept of colony, decolonization, the idea of
The
apology,
slavery past,
and key reparation.
Oh,
Because
yes, key
these are the key things that we talked about, within the kingdom.
Yeah.
We said the kingdom owes an apology. The kingdom, we are a colony within. The kingdom owes reparation. So that was one of the key things that we discussed through that. And we come back at another time and talk to you about
for
that.
sure,
And,
definitely.
because I think it's rather interesting.
And let's
Because we're not a colony. We have, without question, or is a decolonized political entity. Okay, apology for slavery past. That's a long story. Reparation, a longer story.
Yeah.
So at some point we'll come back in and we can detail
For
on
sure.
those areas.
All right, this has been the program, The Great Debate on Late Night with Andrew Drake. Of course, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And again, next week we should be back with another interesting program. Have a good night.